so much for the purpose of this, to help out even people that he thought were bowing to their dust of their feet. Und das ist die Scheiches von Amiris Avram, von Neuche Offer Ve'efer zu die zwei Mitzvahs von Efer Porov Offer Seito. So now we can see the connection between Avram saying Neuche Offer Ve'efer to the two mitzvahs of Efer Porov and Offer Seito. Weil der Kiyum von den zwei mitzvahs, because how do we fulfill these two mitzvahs is verbunden Davke mit dem Hergish HaChesed. It's tied to the feeling of kindness wie das kommt von Neuche Offer Ve'efer as it comes from Neuche Ve'efer. Al derech vis is given by Avram, and it's the way it was by Avram, similar to Avram. Zu sich meise nefesh sein, beruchnis, to sacrifice yourself spiritually, zu lieb helfen a zweiten, to help another. Was das weiß, kenal of Mesiras Nefesh Amitis, that shows true Mesiras Nefesh, that you're willing to give up your spirituality also for someone else. Their din by Pora Aduma is the halacha by the Pora Aduma is the koloiski v'pora mitchilo v'atzoifo. All those that are occupied with the Pora from the beginning to the end, werden tome, they become tome. As fordert sich von den Kohen. So what's expected, it's demanded of the Kohen. But in Yonah is Kiddusha v'taro, U'l'shoros Beis HaMikdash, whose idea is holiness and purity, and to serve the Beis Hamikdash as Erzol Yered Zaimim Madregosei, for him to descend of his level bis zu werden Tome, to the extent he'll become Tome. Und durch dem nicht kennen ton da wegen Beis Hamikdash, and that way he won't be able to do the service of Beis Hamikdash. Berdei zu kennen bringen Tara for a zweiten Yid, in order to be able to bring purity for another Yid. The Kohen who is on the level of Kedusha V'Tara, serves the Beis Hamikdash, descends and becomes Tomei when he deals with the Pora Aduma, because everybody becomes Tomei, all who occupy themselves to bring another Yid Tara. Von welchen Yiden darf der is Kohen sich Metame sein? What kind of a Yid does that Tumah that the Kohen need to be Metame? Not just a regular Yid, not a person who does Avera. It's on the lowest level, Tomei Meis. Paratome Meis. Somebody who has been defiled by Tome Meis, Avi Avesa Tuma. That's the father of all fathers of Tuma, the highest level of Tuma. Was Beruchnis maintenance. What does it mean spiritually, Tumas Meis? Pshas Ayid is Dovuk zum Ebersten. When Ayid is connected to Hashem, is Nechayach the Inyan HaMisva Tuma, then it doesn't apply death Tuma. When you're connected to God, you're all alive. So there's no mace, there's no tuma, there's no tumas, there's no mesa over there. Tumas mace weist, when you say tumas mace, points as Rachmon L'Island, Abgeris, Rachmon L'Island, Abgeris for Kedusha, that God forbid you are torn away from Kedusha, bis as is bedarge for tumas mace, to such an extent that you're like a impurity of a dead. Und zu libaza Eden, and for such a Yid, Montman beim Kohen, we demand from the Kohen, we demand of the Kohen, as soll sich nicht rechnen mit sein Ruchnis, he should not consider and calculate his spiritual level. Und sich Matame sein, he should defile himself. Abi zu helfen dem Eden zu bekommen sein Torah. As long as we can help this Yid to get his Torah. Und al derech zeh is benegei Afar Seita. In a similar way, it's also with Afar Seita is required that dedication. The Oiftu for Meisoita is the novelty of Meisoita is as lasis sholim ben ish leishtoi, in order to make peace between a man and his wife. Amra Torah, the Torah says, Shmi shenichtav b'gedusha yimach alamayim. My name, which is written with sanctity in the portion of that the soita you melt in the water, yimach alamayim should be erased on the water. Should be erased on the water. As is nitokin gresere chilul hakodesh, cannot be no greater desecration of the holiness than Rachmon L'Islam, God forbid, v'mechike b'yadayim shmei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then with your own hands to erase the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But until libasiya sholem benish leishtoi, To make peace between him and his wife is man moichik them shame, so that the man could get together with his wife. Again, you erase the name. Und dort redt sich wegen Aisha, which kind of woman are we talking about? Das hat sich geführt in einer Eifel von Epachatz Nesle Gabri. She conducted herself totally the opposite of modesty. Because Euch noch as Ros Habal Kinui, even after the warning of the husband, which is called the Kinui, hat sie nicht gefolgt, she didn't listen, was his given stira, and then she went into seclusion. So this woman is on a pretty low level, and here we're erasing Hashem's name for that woman. Von deswegen sagt Teure, still Teure says, as Euch zu lieb dem Sholem mit der Isha, also to create peace with that woman is Kedai, it's fitting, uns ist a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah, Vetzivu, it's a command. So Moichik sein dem Shem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to raise the name of HaKadosh, of the holy name. You see, the idea of Soita is to give up for even somebody who on a very low level, raise Hashem the highest level for them in order to make peace by them. The same thing is by the Efer Porah, to the Kohen, everybody to be Metame, to purify somebody who's a Tomei Mace, which shows on a very low level. Hey. So now the Rebbe explains also as Zohar with this explanation. Open der Mountain Biur in them Sichos, by explaining the connection from Anoich Ofer Ve'efer to Pora Aduma, the humility that brings about to reach out even to the furthest extremes, like Pora Aduma. This will add additional explanation in a sipur in Zohar, in a story in the Zohar, B'shaychus to Pora Aduma, as it relates to Pora Aduma. In Zohar werdet erzählt, in Zohar it's related that the Pinchas ben Yair had gebeten by Rav Shbi, soll sagen na Milach Hadeto. He asked Rav Shimon bar Yochai to say something new. In Parsha Zichukas HaTorah, in the portion of the Zichukas HaTorah, which is the Poradum. Hat Rav Shimon bar Yochai gebeten as Rav Lezer ben Noi soll sagen Milach Had. So he asked that his son should say something new. Und Rav Lezer hat getan, Rav Lezer did so. Is the top of the Vayera in seine Oris of the Zohar. So the Rebbe's father explains in his notes on the Zohar, the time was Rav Pinchas ben Yair had gewollt a Milach Hadeto beParshas Pora Aduma Dafke. Why did Rav Pinchas ben Yair want something new, specifically in this section of the red heifer, the Pora Aduma Dafke? And this is the reason for that it was Bechinas Rav Pinchas ben Yair, the level of Rav Pinchas ben Yair who al derech Avram Avinu, because that is similar to Avram Avinu. The Pinchas ben Yair was like Avram Avinu. Avram ksiv anoichi ofer va'efer. And by him it says ofer va'efer, shebishvil shomar efer zochu bonu le'efer poro. So because he said ofer va'efer, and for the efer his sons get efer poro, und the river bika sheyemer parshas poro dafke. That's why he asked to say specifically in the section of poro and zoish chukas HaTorah. That's what the Pinchas ben Yair asked. Is a plug nit verstandig? So this something is not understood here. Why did he pass it along to Rav Shimon bar Yochai and to his son? He should have said himself. That's part of the Anoicha Ofer Ve'efer, to give others opportunity. Isn't plug nit verstandig? So it's simply not understood. The Baal, that's the Inyan from Pora Aduma. Since the Pora Aduma has a connection to the level of Pinchas ben Yair, how come he didn't say it by himself in Parshas Pora Aduma, in the section of Pora Aduma? Why did he ask Rav Shimon bar Yochai to say? Rav Shimon bar Yochai. Similar question with Rav Shimon bar Yochai, but the Pinchas ben Yair. He asked him to say something new. Because the idea about that connection also to Rav Shimon bar Yochai. So that's why he asked him to say it. The Tati is not Mavayir. Even Rav Shimon bar Yochai has a connection, so he asked Rav Shimon bar Yochai. He also didn't say it, but he asked his son to say it. How come they all passed it along to somebody else if they have the connection to the Avram, to the idea of Paraduma? Vapi Hanal, but based on the above, as the Shaykhs from Vanoichi offer Ve'efer to Paraduma. That what is the connection of offer Ve'efer to Paraduma? Is Mitzad Hanoga from Avram Avinu Mitzah Chesed because of the conduct of Avram Mitzah Chesed. In Anoifim from Bittul, because the level of Bittul, that brings together Avram Avinu's Chesed with the Eifer Parum. We understand why they passed it along. The Shaykhs Bepashtus, zwischen Abshim Pinchas Meyor Mechesed Avram is, what's the connection? Where do we see, why is it a Pinchas Meyor like Avram? Was wir gefunden, dass Pinchas Meyor hat sich ausgegeben in Pidyon Shvun. We find that he occupied himself to try to feel free those who are in captivities in the Gemara and Chulin. But now, the Gemara tells the whole story over there, how he split the sea over there. But now, is those that Erster Sipur in Torah and Chesed Avram. That's the first story of Torah of Avram, that he was going to free Lot. But das ist ein Pidyon, das ist ein Chesed, was ist verbunden mit Einstellen sich in Sakona. That is a kindness which is tied to putting yourself in a danger, to save another one. Und od die Shaykhs for the Pinchas Meyor zu Chesed Avram. And that connection of the Pinchas Meyor to the kindness of Avram, to the Velchem in Zechet Sefer HaPorah, for which, because of that you give up of yourself. So you get the Efer Porah, which is the idea of giving up yourself to help another Yid to become from a Tomei Mace. He wanted to express it in this idea itself. In Parshas Pora Aduma, to accomplish something new in Aduma, but in themselves and Eifim, but in the similar way as over there to help somebody else. He gave up on that special merit to reveal something new in Torah, which is a tremendous merit. In order to give the privilege to Rav Shimon ben Yochai. That means self-sacrifice spiritually for another Yid. Let him reveal the new things. And Rabbi Chaim Wolosow gives that up. Because that's the connection to the Pidyon Shavu and to the mitzvah of the Efer of the Paradum. Similar Rashbi, which is also connected, as the Rebbe brought from his father before, to Avram Avinu. Hat mevater given of sein schus, he forgave his schus, kedei as Rabbi Lezer benoy zol haben dem schus, that his son Rabbi Lezer should have that merit. Ulahoir, and this to point out, it's interesting that it's Rabbi Lezer that said it. As the Tata is mevayer, the Rebbe's father explained that those was Rabbi Lezer hat gesagt, die Mille Chadeto, that he said in something news, Al Derech Kemoi, Shapora Rishon, Nasa Belozer HaKoyin. There was also Lozer, this was Lozer. The first part was made Lozer HaKoyin. This Mille Chadeto ended up being through Lozer, the son of Shimon Yochai. But, Apikol Analbatich werden verstandig. So based on all of the above, we also will understand now, Pavos the Schar, if Avodas Avrov, Anoiche Ofer Va'efer, why the reward of Avram's service, I am offer Va'efer, which was Avram's service, is verbunden mit Efer Poradavke. It's associated actually with the ashes of the Porah, not with the water of Chatas, which would be kindness, but with the Efer Porah. That Eifun Anal from Chesed Avram, that above type of Chesed of Avram, was that he even gave up his own spirituality. If to help somebody else, is verbunden damit, was hat zu lieb dem in a Chesed ausgenutzt euch sein mitzvah Gvura. That is associated the fact that in order to fully do Chesed, he actually used his measure of Gvura. Ki yidua pirush in the posik. as known, the known interpretation, the verse ki yidaitiv leman asher yitzave goimer lasis doka v'chesed. Lasis doka mishpat. Sorry, the whole point there is mishpat. I know him, I love him because he's going to do tzedakah and then also mishpat. Why mishpat? Why not tzedakah? Why do you need mishpat? So it's explained as the tzedakah von Avram is given verbunden mit mishpat. That the way he gave tzedakah, that was actually through justice. Früher hat Avram sich shefet given. Before he gave, he judged himself. Sich abgeschaut, wie viel muss haben für sich, how much he must have for himself. Was auf dem hat gemacht, a strengen mishpat. For that, he made a very strict judgment, begvura within, with judgment measurement. Upmestendik, he measured as for sich mege nemen blois amucher chloi mamish. For himself, he can only take that which is absolutely necessary, kinal. Und das ganze Ibrike hat weggegeben, Tzedakah, all the rest he gave for Tzedakah. Was euch die Hanhoge. Also that kind of conduct. So you're using Gevura to do chesed. As midas ha-gevura is Messiah in an inyan ha-chesed, that the measure of Gevura helps you to do kindness. Is verbunden mit der Tchuna from Bittel. That is also associated with that characteristic of subjugation. V'noichi offer veifer. I am sand and ashes. V'shaz der chesed kum mitzad Bittel. When kindness comes from self-effacement, Damut is der chesed nit begrenzt. Then the chesed isn't limited to ein tail for mention, to one part of the person. Chesed in the mtzir for midas chesed, only kindness in the shape of chesed. V'renem durch alle teilen von der mention, this takes through all parts of the person. Bizer macht iber mevatel euch de midas hagvura shaloi, to the extent that it changes over also his measure of strictness. So mitzad atzmai is the hepech hachesed. On its own, it's the opposite of kindness, gvura. But the level of bittel takes the level of gvura to help with the chesed. As that also the measure of gvura is utilized for chesed. Und das ist der Tam, was Vanoichi offer v'efer hat gebracht zu Efer Pora v'ofer Soita. That's the reason why Anoichi offer v'efer of that Abraham said, and his avodah brought to Efer Pora offer Soita. Well, that Iker Eiftu Vanoichi offer v'efer, because the main novelty of Vanoichi offer v'efer drikt sich ois. That expressive nit in einyan from chesed mikore, not something which to begin with is chesed. Mechatos, was mayim is chesed kinal. Mayim represents kindness. Not in them was me macht ibe the gevura lechesed. That is by transforming the gevura to chesed. That gevura should be in the service of chesed. But this is the inyan for sreifas bitla pora. That's the idea to burn the pora. The hamtokas ha-gevura, that is sweetening the stringency. And the form wird der efer pora. And that brings about the ashes of the pora. Gevura in the Likutei Torah, as explained in Likutei, das is der inyan von Efer, that the idea of Efer is as a stot pora par hei, was weist of the hei gvuras kenal sivalov. Instead of par hei, it's now aleph par. Wird al Efer aleph par. Was der aleph hainu agvura kamoishu b'shorshid. Aleph is the gvura as in its root, which is hamtokas agvuras b'shorsham. You clear the sweet in the root. Well, derech zeh is the Reifstoff von Offer Soita, was is Mehapech the Mayim Hamorim. Similar is the acknowledge the accomplishment of Offer Soita, which turns the bitter water as the Mayim Hamorim Gevuras on Reifstoff the Polish Chesed. These bitter waters turns out they should accomplish the act of Chesed, Beniksav and Israel Zera, so that the Soita itself becomes now that she will be cleaned and she will have children. So that is that it turns around the pull of chesed to an act of kindness, as the whole avodas of Porah as explained by the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah. This is Sichos Parshas Shabbos Parshas Chukas Tovshin Mem Tovshin Mem Aleph and Tovshin Daled Mem.